Hello everybody, my name is Richard Wayner and I am in Hunterton, New Jersey today with my friend Jim Carten from Harlem, East Harlem, New York, and he has a project he's been working on for a lot of years and he would like to share it. And so here's Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Good, good.
Alright, so the camera's rolling and
All right,
go on ahead.
all right. Right now, I've been working on a book for about 40 years, and it's really the Old Testament and the New Testament, except the original Bible back from 4 AD or so was it left a lot of books out. It left 16 books out, or 17 books out actually. And what I did was with a lot of searching and researching, I studied the books carefully and put the lost books back in again, and what you see is a totally different story than what people have been told for the past 2,000 years. And even though people have studied it and studied it and studied it, no one's actually questioned, not the Bible itself, not the truths that are in it, that Jesus said. That's all good stuff. But who were the messages? And this is where I think they led everybody astray, because they made it sound supernatural instead of super normal. Okay, it's not supernatural. We actually had an interaction back then, but it was between extraterrestrial people and the people of Earth, and the first colony was put here. And how you find that out is by reading the Book of Enoch. It's mentioned in the King James version that there was a Book of Enoch, but they didn't go into any detail. But if you actually have the book, and it took a long time, it's from 1773 they first discovered. This is an ancient copy of in Greek, and someone finally translated it, and now we get the true story. What happened? And what happened is that 200 sons of heaven, sons of God, came down to this planet with a small colony of people, and they were not supposed to get involved with these people. They were just supposed to watch, and they were called the Watchers. Okay, and so that's all in here. And where my book starts is actually in Genesis 1:26. What piqued my interest was when I read it. It said after the Creator made all the planets and all the animals that were on the earth and the plants and everything, He says, "Let us make man in our image." And that's kind of curious. Why is He talking in the plural? If this is God the Creator, why is He saying "let us"? So that's where the Book of Enoch came in, and he explained that there were 200 sons of heaven, and they came down and they were with us for a while, and then they weren't supposed to get involved, but then they started to, and what they did was, you can tell by reading it, and I'm going to paraphrase this because I'm not the kind of I'm not a pastor or anything. I can't spit out all the chapter and verse that somebody can, but I got the general story down. And that's what I want to share with people, and that's in my book. This is the finished edition called "Pilgrims and Strangers on the Earth." Now, I didn't say that. That's not my words. That's Abraham's words. Abraham said to his people, "Don't forget, you're pilgrims and strangers on the earth." Now, that's kind of curious thing to say 3,500 years ago. So think about it. We know what a pilgrim is. We know what a stranger is. So we came here from another place. We were put here. And that's what this book is meant to say. And I sent a copy to different people for analysis, and I sent one to Temple University. They have the Center for Frontier Science, kind of a think tank, that looks at ideas that are kind of out there. And this is out there, no doubt about it. And this is what they said. "Pilgrims and Strangers on the Earth presents compelling arguments for conventionally unacceptable ideas about the Old and New Testaments, and challenges the conventional perspective from which we interpret those texts." And what they said also, it was 3 pages long, their analysis. They said that I present a new key to the Old and New Testament, and the key fits perfectly. So here's my book, and we're going to hopefully get it out there somehow. I had a publisher, but he went under, so we're going to have to find another way. But you can actually just I don't have a computer. I'm a technophobe. That's why my friend Richard is doing this for me, is because I don't trust computers, and I think they're going to be the end of us, which is what Stephen Hawking said. he said on a number of occasions that the internet will destroy civilization. And he was considered a pretty bright guy. So I'm in his camp too. So this is my book, and it's about 265 pages. And again, it's only the Bible that's in there. But in addition to the Bible, at the end, I put in the lost books, the books that the church fathers conveniently left out. And when you put those in there with my first book, it nails down the fact that, yeah, it probably was extraterrestrial. Because from what we know today, we can understand it if we look at it. So you just have to spend time with it, and you'll see, wow, it's a totally different story. And I think it's important we do that, because we've been, people are drifting away from the church because it really doesn't jive with what we know today. We're a highly technical civilization. And now when you read it with this interpretation, you see that, oh, wow, maybe this is the way it was. And I've had a lot of people say to me, well, it makes more sense than what I was taught. So anyway, this is the book. And if you look at if you could erase the writing on there, the picture on there, it was a painting that was painted in 1710 by one of the masters, Van Gelder, who painted with Rembrandt. And if you look at it, it's called the Baptism of Christ. And if you look past and you see the picture, can you see it there? The Baptism of Christ, and you see light shining down on Mary and Jesus, the baby Jesus, and they're in a cave. They're not in a. This is where, and there's about 50 people in the cave there with them, and there's light shining down. If you look up in the left-hand corner, what is that? It looks like a UFO. And this was painted in 1710. So where did he come up with this? He must have had some experience. I mean, he just didn't come out of his head like that, So you got to look at that and you got to question it, and the saying also. So after supposedly God said, "Let us make man in our image," it goes on. If you go to, let me make sure I get it right, because I don't want to mislead you. At chapter 5, verse 2, I think it is what I want. Oh, so after he said, "Let us make man to our image and likeness," it says in Genesis 6, verse 1 and 2, "And after that men began to be multiplied upon the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of God, seeing the daughters of men, that they were fair, took to themselves wives of all which they chose." Now, they weren't supposed to do that. They were under a non-interference directive. And it says in the book of Enoch, because Enoch was kind of watching the watchers. And he told the holy ones, it doesn't say what the holy ones were, but they were either in ships over the earth or they were out in space. But anyway, he communicated with them. And he told them what the watchers were doing. And they were not happy. They weren't supposed to, and they went to, the leader of these watchers was called Samyaza. And Samyaza, he was the leader, and the rest of the 199, there were 200 altogether, 199 of them said, "Well, this is what we're going to do." They went to Samyaza and said, "Yeah, we want to take wives from this colony." He said, "That's a bad idea, and I'm going to catch the heat for this. You're not supposed to do that," but they did it anyway. And the reason it's plural is because it was Samyaza taking the daughters of men and the sons of heaven, and mating them and saying, "Let us make man in our image." It wasn't God the Creator. It was Samyaza. And again, if you get the book of Enoch, you can check all of this out. I'm not making any of this up. And then in addition, after it took me a long time, but I eventually found the lost books of the Bible. And the lost books tell you that many things about Mary and Jesus, the infancy of Jesus, the infancy of Mary, Mary's mother, and that she was groomed by these angels or ETs, and so was Mary groomed to have Jesus at the age of 14. And she was kept pure, and one of the stories is that Jesus was born and Mary had him through immaculate conception. Well, I found the information here that probably what the case was, and if these were extraterrestrial people, they were highly developed, both philosophically, mentally, technology-wise, they would have certain powers. And what was it? Okay, so anyway,
The birth, the virgin birth.
The way Mary gave birth was through genetic implantation. That's what I'm saying here. And when you read the book, you can say, well, yeah, that's a possibility. You know, you don't have to believe anything I say, but you don't have to disbelieve it either. And if we can stay in that spot, kind of a Zen spot, I think we can have a meaningful conversation. So this is my idea, and I'm putting it forth. And it's all coming from the Latin Vulgate. And here's an old copy of the Latin Vulgate. It's kind of big. And the Latin Vulgate was the Bible in use from 4 AD to 1611 when the King James Version came out. Now, there's many copies of Bibles, and I've read most of them, if not all of them. And the story is contiguous, which means it follows from the oldest Bible to the newest. And here's the Holy Bible, the King James Version. The story is the same. I mean, you can't. The story is basically the story. Only, if you look at it a little differently, and that's what I've done in my book, you look at it from our perspective in the 21st century. Then the meaning of the Bible takes on a totally different story. So that's what I'm here to say, basically. And I've studied all the different books of wisdom around the world, and I've got old Bible dictionaries, and you know, and this I was born into a family of Roman Catholics, and I did go to church on Sundays, but I didn't know what they were talking about. First of all, I didn't speak Latin, so that was a problem. And then I just didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. You know, it just sounded like some kind of fairy tale. And then later on in life, after I've studied Buddhism and studied the Vedas, Vedas are the most comprehensive books we have. And it's not a religion, it's actually a book of science. This is the book, one book that most people know about. It's called the Bhagavad Gita. And it's a Hindu, originally in Sanskrit. Very few people read Sanskrit anymore or can speak it. But that's what it was. And it's just an amazing book in that it's a book of science, and it tells you everything you want to know about who you are, why you're here, and where do you go from here. And but you got to sit and read it. You know, you got to study it. And I don't say I read the book. I've assimilated the book, and that's a big. It takes more time to assimilate something than just to read it once and go on to the next book. But you can see it's in pretty bad shape. It's been taped over many times. I've probably read it a couple hundred times, and I keep reading it. And every time you read it, it's like something. It's like your first time, because it's done something to your consciousness to where you've learned. And now you look at it and say, oh yeah, that's really good, you know. And then you underline something else. So the whole book is really a bunch of, you know, I've underlined quite a bit. And I guess when it's totally underlined is when it'll be in my consciousness. So anyway, that's what I do. I live here out in the woodlands, and it's quiet and beautiful. And I've devoted the rest of my life to just studying the scriptures. And I also have I have this book out, the Pilgrims and Strangers, but I also have a book on CD, which I don't have with me right now, but it's 2 CDs, and it's called Message from the Universe. 2 minutes? So that's it. And if you want to, we're trying to get it out there. Like we're amateurs at this, so it's not going to be very polished, I guess. But as long as you get the word, you got my name. I am on Amazon, but we may have a glitch in the Amazon connection, so you may or may not be able to order my book unless you just get my address, you know, or try to find it somehow. It is on Amazon, so see if you can get it. Like I said, we're kind of in a transition phase right now. So anyway, that's all the time we have for the moment, but hopefully we'll have more of these sessions, and we can talk about other books like the I Ching and many of the holy books around the world, you know, because they have a lot to say and a lot that we can learn today.